I live in the Eastern Panhandle. I showed up here and there were some folks I recognized. I didn't mean to be rude or dismissive towards anyone, so please forgive me. My name is Marshall Wilson. I am your Constitution Party candidate for governor of West Virginia. I'm a retired combat veteran U.S. Army infantry officer. I was a missionary in the Peruvian Amazon. I'm a Baptist preacher. My wife is a retired Navy captain. I used to say that I'm married to a retired Navy captain, and then a gentleman said, "So you mean your wife, right?" And yes, my wife is a retired Navy captain. We both started out enlisted as E1s, worked our way up. She ended up retiring 2 ranks higher than I did because she's smarter than I am. She says that the reason that I didn't make 06 in the Army like she did in the Navy is because my favorite phrase was, "Yes, sir, I understand your intent, but," and it was that "but" that was the real problem. So we have 9 kids. Not real sure how that happened. The last 2 we adopted. I was living in Peru as a missionary. There was this lady who came to visit me one day, and she wanted to know if Jesus would still love her if she had an abortion. So we had that talk. It took about 4 hours, and I explained to her that making decisions based on whether or not Jesus will stop loving you doesn't actually help you make good decisions, because he'll always love you, right? So what you need to do is figure out what he wants you to do and make those decisions. We talked for about 4 hours. I was a missionary living on donations. I had 7 kids already, and I was trying to help her by helping her find a business, find a job, find a home, whatever I could do. I offered to get her 3 kids that she already had enrolled in school, whatever I could do. And finally she said, "I just can't handle another child." I said, "Fine, I will adopt your kid." And she said, you already have 7. I said, "Yes, ma'am, I can count." So she had twins, and their names are Josiah and Hadassah. Joe prefers to be called Joe, and he was just named prom king at Musselman High School this past Friday night. And Joe is an amazing guy, and Hadassah is a complete smart aleck, but she takes after her mom. So Joe is he's got some severe educational delays, but I tell you what, he loves everybody. Hadassah is an honor student, and she's preparing to enlist in the Air Force, the Air Force National Guard, go to college, get her commission, and Lord knows what she'll end up doing in the Air Force. She's gone from public affairs to intel to, all weapons officer, all kinds of stuff. So we'll see what she does, but she is very proud of the military service of her parents, and she wants to emulate that, except that her mom's Navy, I'm Army, and she decided on Air Force. And I guess it'll work out. I have a master's degree in national security, which I earned at the Institute of World Politics. I focused on how free societies devolve into totalitarianism. In other words, how you can live in a free country and then you end up living in a totalitarian country. And all this discussion about communism, socialism, all that kind of stuff, nobody really understands what those words mean. So when you hear those arguments, just understand that that's not the relevant point. The relevant point is somebody wants to own you. That's what matters. Doesn't matter what the title is of their philosophy or whatever. What matters is they want to own you. I'm working on my PhD. I've actually gone on hiatus while I do this. And I teach in a master's program at Liberty University online. It's military operations. I teach battlefield analysis, command leadership, and asymmetric warfare. And if you don't believe that your government is engaged in asymmetric warfare against you right now, you are not paying attention. So let's define what war is real quick. Does war mean shooting people? Occasionally. But the problem is Americans seem to think that's all war is. All right, so the elements of power are diplomacy, or when it's domestic, it would be politics. Politics is a form of war. Are y'all aware of that? It is. It absolutely is. Von Clausewitz made that very clear. Information, the use of information to compel you to do what they want you to do. Military, the use of force to compel you to do what they want you to do. And economics. Where's the banker? Where do you go? Mr. Dunn, there you go. Can you use economic power to compel people or entities or governments or businesses to? Absolutely. All right. And you have to understand that taxation in general is a form of economic warfare. Now, don't get me wrong. We have to have government because we're all corrupt. I believe that. But we have to have a government that does the job it's supposed to do. Anything else that it does is necessarily oppressive. Why is it oppressive? Because they are taking from you the resources that you have created or earned by the investment of yourself, your time, your effort, your capabilities, your creativity. You invest that into building wealth, whether that's you individually, you as a family, you as a corporation, you a community. That wealth is yours because you have literally invested the elements of yourself into earning that money or that opportunity, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So when the government comes and takes it from you, they're actually either stealing it from you or enslaving you, whichever way you look at it. So when the government speaks to you, it speaks one language and one language only. That language is law. And the way that the language of law, the syntax of law is comply with this requirement or we will shoot you in the face. You doubt me? I was talking with Hoppy Kercheval the other day. The second time this guy has ever interviewed me, and I have been in politics in West Virginia since 2015 when I first ran. I was a delegate in 2017, was reelected in 2018 for another term that ended in 2020. And this is the second time he's ever talked to me. And the first time was simply to tell me that I was wrong about something for 10 minutes. So I made this statement on Hoppy Kercheval's show the other day. And he says, well, I don't see anybody shooting anybody. I said, wow, that's fascinating. Maybe you should, pay attention. People are getting shot every day. So here's the thing. He said, well, if you don't pay your taxes, you don't get shot. What happens if you don't pay your taxes? Well, what if I don't want to go to jail? What if I say, no, thank you. Have a nice home here. I'm good, right? Somebody with a gun shows up, right? Well, what's the purpose of that gun? And Hoppy's response was, well, you might have a gun. That's a distinct possibility at my house. But the point is, why are they speaking to me with a gun on their hip? Because they are there to compel me to comply. Is that right? All right, so what is the purpose of government? Is it to compel people to comply? Is it to build a great society? Is it to show us what's right and wrong and good and true? None of those things. What is the purpose of government? Which people? When? To do what?
To take care of us.
If you will allow me, I'd like to offer an answer to that question. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. To secure these rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The only valid purpose for any government at any level is to secure the rights of the citizens who are subject to that government. And I say subject to the laws that government enforces, not subject to the government itself. So the only valid purpose for laws, the only language that government speaks, the only time that anyone can say to you, comply with my will, or I will shoot you in the face, the only time that's valid, the only time it's ethical and moral and right, is when they are telling you to stop infringing upon someone else's rights. Am I making sense? All right. So do I get to walk out on the street and start popping people? No. Why does the government? Do I get to go out on the street and say, give me $500 or I'm going to shoot you? No. If someone is out here in the parking lot and they're assaulting someone, do I get to walk out there and say, stop that or I'm going to bust your head open? You better believe it. Absolutely. I had better do that. The point is that concept extends to the government. The government is simply a tool that we, the people, have created. Right? We have created it. Why did we create it? In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. That's why the government exists. Government doesn't exist to do handouts, to move wealth around, to take away from Bob and give it to Joe. The government doesn't exist to tell you how to live, to teach you what's moral and good and right. The government exists to secure your natural rights and your natural rights and your natural rights And from whom are they securing your natural rights? Against each one of us. We're all corrupt, every single one of us, right? Look, I'm not going to lie to you. If I had the opportunity and felt the need, I would probably take advantage of somebody. I would, because we're all corrupt, right? Now I try hard not to, because I'm scared silly of God. I mean, I actually have met the guy and I'm scared of him. Nothing else scares me. I'm a combat veteran infantryman. I've lived in the Peruvian Amazon. I've got 9 kids. I'm not scared of anything. I attempted to impeach Jim Justice, attempted to remove the Speaker of the House of Delegates. Nobody scares me, but God Almighty scares me to death. And because of that, I try really hard to do what's right, and I still screw up constantly, right? So the reason the government exists is because we are all corrupt. The government is made of people. There's nothing special about them. They're not wonderful, good people. They're not smarter than you are. They're not better than you are. They're not more moral, more ethical. They're just people, and they're just as corrupt as the rest of us. And as Lord Acton said, power tends to corrupt. Absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. Now, I differ with him on the syntax here. I don't think power actually corrupts anyone. It just allows you to enact your corruption on other people. Does that make sense? So that's the reason that we have federalism. That's the reason we have separation of powers. That's the reason that we have home rule. That's the reason I supported it when I was a delegate. Because the state doesn't have a right to tell this town how to run its business. Right? Okay. So what is my purpose if you elect me as your chief executive, as the chief of the executive branch of this state, as your governor? I will audit every single function of the executive branch. And I know how to do it. I did it for the Army for years. I will audit every single function of the executive branch, starting with CPS, by the way. And it's not that CPS is more corrupt than any other branch. It's that CPS is responsible for children. I will start with CPS, and I will audit every single function of the executive branch of this state to ensure that they are functioning according to Constitution, and not just the Constitution, but the principles of the Constitution that I've expounded here tonight, according to the existing laws that created that department or that function, according to fiscal responsibility, right? Is how can a state protect you? And by state, I'm using it in the general term, any state, any government. How can it protect your rights if it's misusing the money that it confiscates from you at gunpoint? I mean, it's bad enough they take it from you at gunpoint, but if they use it for anything other than to secure your rights and those of your fellow citizens, how is that securing your rights? Right? So fiscal responsibility, they've got to use the money well. They've got to use it right. And by the way, when I say that, what I mean is the people who waste it should be held personally accountable. I will call them out. I will say, this is Bob. Bob has done this with your money. He is your employee. What do you intend to do about it? So fiscal responsibility. In addition to that, operational principles. I want them to be efficient. I want them to actually get the job done. I want them to be effective. Now, in the Army, I ran a bunch of units, and I was regularly called upon to go find the units that couldn't get the job done and figure out what their problem was. And one thing that I just determined was that people have a tendency to misidentify the problem. In other words, they walk in and they say, oh, the problem here is all the soldiers are too tall. No, the problem is the doors are too low, right? You get what I'm saying? I'm being a little facetious, but that's the idea. So you've got all these brilliant people who want to walk in, they look at the problem, they start arguing about how to fix it. Nobody ever figured out what the problem was. They're all saying, well, the problem is people are mad about it. That's not the problem. That's a result of the problem. The problem is there is something that is off kilter. Find that, fix that issue. Everything else will flow downstream. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to audit to find out exactly what the problems really are. So operational principles. Yes, sir, I see you looking at your watch. I'm a Baptist preacher. Give me just a minute. I will get to the point. So operational principles, and then finally personnel operations. Guys, do y'all have any idea how many of our state agencies are involved in, the people in the state agencies are involved in nepotism? They hire their buddies, their cousins. We should live in a meritocracy. There should only be one measure of success. Did you get the job done? Did you get the job done? And that rules out all other characteristics. How tall you are, thank God, because I'm not, right? How good looking you are, thank God, because I'm not, right? Everything else should be factored out. Your sex, you know, what color your hair is, all that should be factored out, and there should be one standard. Do you get the job done? So personnel operations. And then finally, believe it or not, I actually intend to impose upon your state government, specifically the parts of it that actually interact with counties, with towns, with individuals or other entities directly. I'm going to teach them customer service. And I'm going to do that by actually setting up in my office a phone line that people, Bob out on the street, can say, you know, I went to the DMV today. Jeez, man, all I wanted to do was get my kid a driver's license, and I got this stuff. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to walk down to the DMV in Milton and say, hey, Mrs. Jones, you're a horrible agent, you're fired. That's never going to happen. What I'm saying is that if there turns out to be a particular branch of the government or a particular location of one of the departments of the executive branch where there is a problem, there are continuous complaints, I'm going to make them accountable to the people that they serve. Okay? My name is Marshall Wilson. I'm your Constitution Party candidate for governor. I am on the ballot, although Pat Morrissey had me thrown off the ballot 3 times after I'd earned access to it. 3 times. So he showed up and apparently convinced a bunch of county clerks to unvalidate, they'd already validated the signatures. I had to turn in almost 8,000 signatures to get my name on the ballot. And he apparently got a bunch of county clerks to unvalidate enough of them to put me at exactly 100 below what I needed. I mean, if you're going to run an operation like that, don't make it 100. You make it 27 or 93, not 100. That's just silly. But anyway, I needed 7,843 signatures, and I got 9,500. I say my team across the state did this. I didn't do it, obviously. But we got 9,500 and something, 550 something. And we were told by the Secretary of State's office, good job, guys. See you on the ballot. Proud of you. And then we never showed up on the website. We never got the letter saying we were on the ballot. I had to call the Secretary of State's office and say, what's going on, guys? And finally they said, oh, well, there's been a complaint. I said, were you going to advise me of this? Were you going to let me know that there was an issue that I could address? Well, you know, it doesn't really, it's not a problem you can address. I said, I'm sorry. You're saying that I have failed in a mission that you had previously told me I had succeeded in, and now you're telling me there was nothing I could do about it, that I don't need to address it. What is the problem? Oh, well, a bunch of the counties have decided that your signatures weren't really valid. I said, how many? They told me. I said, fine. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to contact all 9,500 people who signed my petition. And yes, I do have their contact information. I will ask them to go into their county clerk's office and validate their own signatures. How's that sound? And he said, please don't do that. I said, I don't have any options here. This is what I will do. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, let us start with your county, Berkeley County. It's one of the most densely populated. It's your home county. It's where a lot of your signatures come from. And there are a lot of them that have been invalidated. I said, a lot of them that have been invalidated. Thank you for phrasing it that way. And so they did. And weirdly enough, you're going to find this really hard to believe, they came back with just enough to put me on the ballot. Just a little over 100. And they said the problem was we had to hire some temps from an administrative temp agency in Martinsburg. And they weren't really, experienced in looking at the signatures and seeing if they matched. And gosh, those people just made some mistakes. And I said, are you trying to tell me that the people in charge of this operation chose those people to do the one subjective part of the process? And he said, yes. I said, fascinating. You guys are on the ball. A few days later, he told me, look, we're going to send you your letter. We're going to put you on the ballot. We're going to put you on the website. You're good to go. I said, thank you. 3 days later, still wasn't on the website. Still didn't get my letter. I said, what's the problem? Were you going to let me know what the problem is? Well, apparently 30 of the county clerks say they have never sent you credentials. You have to get permission to collect signatures to get your name on the ballot. 30 of the 55 say they never sent you credentials. I said, well, that's fascinating. I've got all of the emails. And by the way, I have originals of each one of them sitting right here on my desk at home. Shall I send you pictures of them? Yeah, that would help. I said, great. Click, 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 send him all 55 of them. I said, okay, so you're going to put me on the ballot, send me a letter, put me on the website, right? He says, yeah, well, you're good to go. 3 days later, still not on the website, still haven't gotten my letter. And it's an email. I was looking for an email from them, not, hard copy. I said, okay, so what's the problem now? Well, the problem is that the guy who filed the complaint, I said, can I have his name, please? Well, it was it was in the name of a committee. I said, let me guess. It was the West Virginia Republican Party State Executive Committee, and it was for their candidate, Pat Morrissey, at his behest. And he went, well, yeah. I said, okay, y'all really need to stop playing games with me. I said, what is the problem now? He said, well, the thing is, we've got 18 of them that we've identified. They're all, all the county clerks have finally agreed that they actually sent you these credentials. I said, that's nice. What's the problem now? He said, well, 18 of them don't have the gold star on them. The county clerk's seal, like kindergarten's gold star. You did a good job. I said, that's fascinating because I've got the code sitting right in front of me and it's got this word in here. Can you define it for me? I said, you're an attorney, right? He said, yes, I am. I said, what does the word optional mean? What does that mean? Optional. Can you help me? Right. So he says, well, that's what it means. It means either yes or no. I said, okay, so the 18 that don't have it, it's optional. We're good to go, right? I'm looking forward to seeing my name on the website so I can get on with my life. You can stop disrupting my campaign. Yeah, we'll get on it. A couple of days. Give us a couple of days. The next day, I got in my car, drove 5 hours to Charleston, walked into their office and said, how y'all doing? Let's get this done. You'll note that I'm on the website now. I am actually a valid candidate on the ballot. I'll be number 5. S. Marshall Wilson, Constitution Party. They've abbreviated Constitution as CST. Anyway, this is what I'm willing to do for you. I am willing to fight these battles for you. I am willing to make political, informational, and economic war on your government in your name to force them to serve the Constitution and to serve you. I'd appreciate it if you'd consider voting for me, and I will never, ever, ever, ever back down. Thank you for your time. Yes, sir. Questions, please.
Got to find out the name, but I'm pretty sure I know what Scott said as to where to go. Do you really align with Eric and his beliefs?
I couldn't say. What do you mean? What are you asking me? Religious beliefs, political beliefs, mathematical beliefs? Okay.
Pro-life, okay?
Oh, I'm life. Okay. Government exists to secure your natural rights. The first one is life. I'm a pro-life absolutist. I adopted 2 kids from Peru to prevent them from being adopted. I've supported other people to prevent their engaging in abortion. This is just the one time where I had to actually adopt the kids to keep them from being aborted. Yes, sir.
And so basically you're lined up with Republicans pretty much.
No, absolutely not. I will uphold the Constitution no matter what it costs me. That's the difference between me and the Republicans.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Now, I'm not talking about Eric and I'm not talking about Amy. I'm talking about the party, their leadership, and the direction that they're going right now. I will absolutely lay down my life to secure your natural rights under the Constitution, and I spent 20 years in the infantry proving it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I am an 18-year-old. I just turned 18 this summer. I'll be 19 next summer. I'm a college student. In 28, I'll be a full-time teacher and in elementary education. I obviously am just learning to adult, just becoming an adult. I want to know that if we elect you, we get you as governor, you get into the Capitol. You're for us. What would you do to help not only the older generation, the middle generation, anybody from 30s to late 40s, but my young generation? What would you do to help us learn how to adult better?
Help you learn how to adult better. Okay, first of all, we're all still trying to learn how to adult. That's one thing. The second is, it is not the government's job to teach you how to live. I know the government keeps trying to do that, but it's not their job. They need to quit it. They don't know how you should live. You should be teaching the government how to govern. The government should not be teaching you how to live. All right. Now, Harley, I'm not blowing you off here. What I'm telling you is that it's our job as individuals and as a society to teach each other how to live. Just for instance, I was a punk in middle school. I know y'all find that hard to believe, but I thought I was the smartest guy in the room. I thought I was hilarious, and I was strong enough to basically enforce my will on the other guys. And so I was a punk, and I was a troublemaker. My dad was the local Southern Baptist preacher in town, so I got him all kinds of interesting phone calls. And on one occasion, the principal of my school actually called my dad and invited him out to lunch, and then sat down with my dad, and he said, "Steve, Marshall has to shut up. He has to shut up. He cannot sit in the class and talk nonstop while the teacher's talking. He can't pick on the teacher. He can't tell jokes. He has to shut up." My dad is not only a Southern Baptist preacher, he was a combat veteran Marine who served in Vietnam. Just to give you an idea, he taught me that I was never allowed to start a fight, and I'd better always finish it. Anyway, so I got home that night, and my dad, we had a meeting, the two of us, and it went all his way. And I understood that I needed to shut up. All right. So what I'm getting at is when you have kids in school who are not maintaining control of themselves, who are not focused on learning, it's not the teacher's problem. Excuse me. It is the teacher's problem. It's not the teacher's responsibility to fix that. It is a problem that the teacher has to deal with. The teacher should be teaching an academic topic and maintaining an environment in which learning can happen. The teacher is also not responsible for how well the students learn. It's not their fault. I was flunking out of high school because I wasn't paying attention. None of my teachers were at fault. It was my fault. I was a punk. So the thing is that our society has to work together so that we are teaching each other how to behave. And it can't be compulsive. You cannot compel someone to comply. You have to work with them. Now, the only time compulsion ever comes into it is when someone is infringing upon someone else's right. And that's why we have a government, so that we don't have to shoot each other to make each other stop, right? So the government can come and say, no, you can't do that. You've stolen from this person. You've injured this person. That's not acceptable. We're going to protect their rights. But when it comes to how we get along with each other, how we live together, that is a societal duty. And we have to stop conflating government with society. That's actually the source of a lot of our problems. We think that the government is actually here to enforce the dictates of society, and that is utterly false. Society and government are two completely different issues, two completely different bodies, and they exist for two completely different purposes. Does that help, or am I being too philosophical? Okay, thank you. Y'all getting out of here? No, don't be sorry. It was great seeing you.
See what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's good seeing you, sir. You heading out?
Talking that
All right.
real quick.
Thank you. Thanks, ma'am.
Hi, so happy to meet you.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Constitution, I'm all about the
Yes, ma'am.
Constitution.
Hey, if y'all want signs or anything for your favorite candidate, please pick them up, and please grab your candidate and ask them questions and hold them accountable. I guess I'm done. Yes, sir.
At the time, I already knew the answer to the question, but I want you to have the opportunity to say it.
Thank you.
What do you think the Republicans are so afraid of? I want you to be able to answer that because I already know.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah,
It's an independent, by the way, for a reason.
turn it off.